Nature and scope of political science. Introduction. This study session will introduce you to the various definitions of politics within the concept of political science as a distinct field of study. This will facilitate your deeper understanding of the concept. The study session will also expose you to the scope of politics and what political science entails. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this study session, you should be able to discuss the art and science of politics and government, differentiate between politics, political science, and government, and discuss the idea of politics in terms of definition and significance. Political science and the study of politics. Political science is indeed a very old discipline. Aristotle, who lived between 384 and 322 BC, a Greek, described politics as queen of sciences in his book Politics, published in 1282. By this, he meant that almost everything happens in a political context, that the decisions of the polis, that is, the Greek city-state, governed most other things. Politics is intimately connected to social, economic, geographical, psychological systems. For instance, disaster is natural, but its impact on society is controlled in large part by politics. Most of the choices we make, either as individuals, groups, or government, are political. Until the last quarter of the 19th century, however, political science lacked a separate identity as a distinct field of study. It was dominated by political philosophers, theologians, and journalists, but seldom engaged in by full-time professional political analysts. A convenient starting point at understanding what political science entails is a discussion on what politics is all about. What is politics? Like many other concepts in social sciences, politics has no single or universally accepted definition. In fact, you need to know that there are as many definitions of politics as there are works in political science. Many of these definitions are, however, mutually contradictory or irreconcilable. According to the Greek philosopher Aristotle, politics is the essence of social existence, and that two or more men interacting with one another are invariably involved in a political relationship. This definition appears to make every man in the society a politician and therefore too broad. Harold Laswell, in his own view, defines politics as who gets what, when, and how, which underlines the significance of power as a major ingredient of politics. In other words, politics for Laswell is concerned with which group of individuals in the society gets what resources and at what time and in what manner. In this sense, politics is equated with the study of power. The problem with Laswell's definition is that it is too broad. You should be conscious of the fact that there is always a question of who gets what, when, and how, or strictly speaking, the central issue of power, influence, and authority wherever two or more men are involved in a relationship. For instance, in the family, a social club, cultural organization, or in the university. Another American political scientist, David Easton, has defined politics as authoritative allocation of values for a society. Easton's definition, however, appears to be rather abstract. This is because It fails to tell us what the relevant values are and how the values are produced, who makes the authoritative allocation of values, and what values govern these allocations. To a German philosopher, Karl Marx, politics is seen as the confrontation or struggle among social classes or economic groups. This definition is too narrow in that groups other than social classes are involved in the struggle for power in the society. These groups can be ethnic groups, racial groups, or religious groups. To the utilitarian, ably represented by Benjamin Bentham, politics is the means by which men could promote their private and collective interests. This is also narrow, in the sense that there are other means by which men promote their interests. Question: Harold Laswell's definition of politics as who gets what, when, and how emphasizes the notion of A. Power, B. Government, C. State, D. Territory. Feedback on the question. 1. The correct answer is A. 2. If you choose B and C, then you would have stated that the definitions of politics as who gets what, when, and how revolves only in the public realm, that is, government circle, and not in the private realm, that is, family, school, etc. In fact, Laswell's definition makes more reference to the acquisition of power that can be seen in both the public and private realm. 3. If you chose D, then you would have related the definition to territorial boundaries. This conception of politics is, however, not limited to geographical locations of a state. It can also occur in both domestic and international fora among government and private individuals. Some scholars posit that politics equates with the organization and operation of governmental institutions. According to this definition, politics involves the functioning of institutions which make law, enforce it, and settle controversy arising from different interests and various interpretations of the law. The problem with this definition is that it is too narrow and formalistic. This is because it ignores the political activities of such non-governmental institutions as political powers and interests or pressure groups. Other scholars perceive politics as a quest for power, order, and justice, the art of influencing, manipulating, and controlling others using authority, a process of resolution of conflicts in society, and a struggle among actors pursuing conflicting desires on public issues. More appropriately, politics can be seen as concerning the activities of governmental institutions in a state, as well as any aspect of the society that directly or indirectly affects the operation of these institutions. In short, politics involves organization of government and the behavior of groups and individuals in matters that are likely to affect the course and conduct of government, as, for example, in voting and in forming pressure groups. Crucial to any definition of politics is the state, which is the most important contemporary framework for the conduct of politics. The state is simply defined as a territorial organization exercising a legitimate monopoly of force over a people within the specified geographical boundary. The modern state has four major characteristics, namely people, territory, government, and sovereignty. Also, when there is no best definition for politics, most political scientists agree that politics has something to do with power, influence, and authority, which are the central organizing concepts of the study of politics. Question: State is the most important contemporary framework for the conduct of dash. 1. Government. 2. People. 3. Territory. 4. Politics. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is D. If you chose A, B, or C, you are wrong. In fact, people, territory, and government are elements of a state. Political science, politics, and government. Having exposed you to different meaning of politics, it is important to explain what political science entails. There exists some confusion on what political science entails. Part of the confusion is in respect of politics as an academic discipline and politics as an art. To some people, political scientists are politicians. Even to some people, political science offers training for revolutionaries or politicians. Let me point this out to you, that political science is not necessarily training to become a practicing politician. Political scientists, as pointed out earlier, carry out systematic and objective analysis of politics, which may or may not aid working politicians. Meanwhile, you should be aware that politicians love power, while political scientists are skeptical of power. While politicians seek popularity and think practically, political scientists seek accuracy and think abstractly. More importantly, politicians often respond to group and seek name recognition, while political scientists seek the good of the whole and seek professional prestige. Therefore, it could be inferred that not all political scientists are politicians and vice versa. Billy Dudley, in his inaugural lecture titled Skepticism and Political Virtues, delivered in 1975, cleared the ground on what political science is all about. From his submission, it is evident that political science is the study of politics. To him, politics and indeed political science entail the following. 1. Consciousness formation, that is, the evolving of awareness amongst a collectivity of the issues and problems that confront the collectivity. 2. Social mobilization, which is the organization of a collectivity for joint collaborative action. 3. Contestation, the contesting and determination of natural priorities through the process of argumentation and debate. 4. Institutional struggle, or the conversion of fights into games and debates. 5. Transcendence, the bringing about of change both at the level of the person and at the systemic and subsystemic levels. In his conclusion, he opined that political science is a systematic study of these various components of politics. Like Dudley, the World Book Encyclopedia 1997 describes political science as the systematic study of political life. It, however, added that political scientists seek answers to such questions as what reasons justify the actions of government, and whose interests are served by the government. The scope and importance of political science. Political scientists study the various forms of government, as well as political parties, pressure groups, elections, international relations, public institutions, comparative politics, and public administration. All these deal with the activities of individuals and groups, both at the national and international levels. You should note that political science deals with fundamental values such as equality, freedom, justice, and power. These are issues within and outside formal operations of government. In terms of significance of political science to human endeavors, it is well established from the definitions given above that politics matters to every human being. Let me illustrate. If you do not take an interest and participate, someone else will, and they will influence the decisions that affect and govern your lives. Awareness of what politics is and how it works raises the consciousness in us to look after ourselves and prevent others from using us, since the ignorant are usually manipulated. The fact remains that you need not like the thing you study. For instance, virologists studying viruses and diseases may observe a disease-causing virus under a microscope. The fact that they do not like the virus does not hinder them from studying how it grows, how it does its damage, and how it may be prevented or eradicated. Neither do biologists who get angry at the bacterium and smash the glass slide with a stone. They first understand the forces of nature and then see how they can work with them to improve mankind's existence. What political scientists try to do with politics is not different. So far, we have discussed the nature and scope of politics. You will now engage in a reading activity on consensus view and conflict views on politics. Task: read the article below and answer the questions that follow. Introduction. Many scholars have attempted to conceptualize politics and give meaning to the term. One of them is Stephen Gilliatt, who introduced two major traditions into the understanding of politics as a means of conflict management, and at the same time perceived it as a means of conflict. This activity is aimed to expose you to consensus and conflict views of politics, so as to have comprehensive understanding of some salient issues in political science. Consensus and conflict views of politics. According to Stephen Gilliatt, there are two major traditions in the understanding of politics. One tradition views politics as a positive means of conflict management, while the other one sees it as concerned with the production and promotion of conflicts. The first view Stephen Gilliatt called the consensus or management view of politics. The second he described as the conflict view of politics. The consensus view of politics. The following are the arguments associated with the consensus or management view of politics. 1. Politics is the process of resolving the problem of conflicting desires. It is concerned with resolving conflicts and contradictions peculiar to human existence. In short, controlling conflicts is the crucial and central function of the political process. 2. Conflicting desires arise when people want resources that are incompatible or in short supply. In other words, scarcity of resources leads to disagreement. Even men have diverse views, interests, and characteristics. They differ in their view of the nature of man and his role in the world. They have conflicting interests as young and old, employer and employee, or rich and poor. They also differ racially and psychologically. These differences provide the basis for political activities. Consequently, therefore, competing political parties are evidences of the disagreement, not causes of this disagreement. 3. Politicians and political processes function to accommodate and regulate differences by recognizing, representing, or responding to them. Thus, the primary role of the political process is to integrate and reconcile conflicting desires in order to produce policies that benefit everybody and ensure security and order. 4. Inevitably, therefore, politics is concerned both with conflict and consensus, disagreement and agreement, disorder and order, or politicking and policy making. While differences or conflicting desires provide basis for politics, consensus or agreement is also required in order to reconcile the conflicting interests and ensure social stability and effective government. In essence, if politics is not to degenerate to anarchy, it is imperative or it is important that people who hold divergent interests should also accept the constraints imposed by the political framework of the rule, which regulates the gains of politics in society. 5. Finally, politics is therefore the functional activities having as its aim the accommodation and resolution of conflicts, the establishment of order, and formulation of decisions or policies. Politics is a cure for, rather than the cause of disagreement, and that maintaining order is the legitimate aim of all political activities. The conflict view of politics. The conflict view of politics makes the following propositions or arguments. 1. Politics is concerned not with the management of conflict, but for its production and promotion. Differences became unmanageable when they are politicized, and issues become controversial when they are given energy by politicians. 2. The consensus view of politics is a faulty and mistaken description of the nature of political activities. The inadequacy of consensus view of politics becomes obvious when we look at the nature of international politics. The international political arena is conflict-ridden. Different nations aggressively compete for power, and there are no universally accepted processes or rules to regulate relations among these nations. The unregulated competition among states in international system has transformed international politics into a turbulent and dangerous process. You need to know this is also true of domestic politics. 3. It is wrong to assume that competing political parties are evidences of disagreement, not causes of them. On the contrary, it is through politics that disagreement and conflicting interests are established and accepted in the first place. Strictly speaking, this view argues that politics plays a major role in creating differences and conflicting interests. Therefore, it does not resolve conflicts, it creates them. 4. Political groups are not always ready to accept the constraints imposed by the established institutions and structure of the society. To be political is to be militant, and to be militant may entail the breaking of established conventions and processes. For example, Marxist or socialist books in capitalist society do not regard public institutions for accommodating and regulating conflicts in these societies as legitimate. Rejection of institutional constraints therefore seems to be an essential ingredient of what it takes to be political. 5. Widespread apathy to politics among ordinary people is rooted in the conflictual nature of politics. For the ordinary people, politics involves taking an issue of principle to a point where confrontation becomes inevitable and cooperation impossible. Politics is seen as something to be avoided by people who want to live with each other on friendly terms. In other words, ordinary people see politics as an obstacle to the regulation of conflicts and the survival of associations. 6. Politicians survive not by building consensus or reconciling differences, but by placing groups and associations against one another through the exaggeration of differences and the use of propaganda. They encourage groups to conceive others' points of view as opposite and antagonistic to their own. The campaign of socialist politicians, for example, informs workers about their exploitations by the bourgeoisie and the use of political institutions as instruments of class domination. Thus, politicians tend to complicate issues which could be resolved peacefully and with little noise. In conclusion, the conflict view emphasizes that politics is not about coexistence and conciliation, but polarity and antagonism. In short, politics is not a means of peaceful accommodation and resolution of conflicts, but an instrument for the promotion of conflicts. Question: fill the empty spaces with the most appropriate answer. Many scholars have expressed their views about politics. Dash, as one of the scholars, identified two major traditions in the understanding of politics, which are conflicts. One tradition views politics as a positive means of conflict management, while the other one sees it as concerned with the production and promotion of conflicts. The first view was called the Dash, or management view of politics, while the second was described as the Dash view of politics. The first tradition concludes that Dash is the cure for, rather than the cause of disagreement arising from scarcity of resources, and that maintaining order is the legitimate aim of all political activities. The second tradition, on the contrary, emphasizes that politics is not about coexistence and conciliation, but polarity and antagonism. To this conflict view, politics is not a means of peaceful accommodation and resolution of conflicts, but an instrument for the promotion of Dash. Question: which of the following statements about consensus view of politics is not true? 1. Politics is the process of resolving the problem of conflicting desires. 2. Conflicting desires arise when people want resources that are incompatible or in short supply. 3. Politicians and political processes function to accommodate and regulate differences by reorganizing, representing, or responding to them. 4. Politics is concerned not with the management of conflicts, but for its production and promotion. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is D. If you believe A, B, and C are true, and the odd one is D, then you are correct. This is because while A, B, and C are concerned with the consensus view of politics, D is concerned with the conflict view of politics. Study session summary. In this study session, we noted that politics has no single or universally accepted definition. Politics involves organization of government and the behavior of groups and individuals in matters that are likely to affect the course and conduct of government. The state, which is regarded as the most important contemporary framework for the conduct of politics, is crucial to any definition of politics. Most political scientists agree that politics has something to do with these central organizing concepts of the study of power, influence, and authority. You also learned that political science is a systematic and scientific study of politics. According to Billy Dudley, it entails consciousness formation, social mobilization, contestation, institutional struggle, and transcendence. End of study session 1. Thanks for listening.